1890, repairs in Atlanta shops. Well, in 1890, former Governor Brown decided he wants to get out of the railroad business. The lease is up again. And the WA is leased by the Nashville, Chattanooga, St. Louis Railroad. And our poor locomotive, the most famous locomotive in the world, is labeled as condemned with a value of $1,500. Isn't this awful? So that's kind of a low point in the history of the General. 1891, well, maybe this is even worse. The General retired from service and moved to a lonely asylum in Vinings, Georgia. There was even a controversy about this because there was a guy named Warren Clark, who he discovers the General sitting on that siding in Vinings, and he goes nuts. He starts this newspaper campaign, this publicity campaign. Says this is the most famous locomotive in the world. This is a national treasure. Why has the Nashville, Chattanooga, and St. Louis put it on the siding as if it's forgotten? Now, the Nashville, Chattanooga, and St. Louis always claim it was simply sitting on the siding because they were going to recondition it. So who was actually right? I don't know. The guy peering out the window here, I really can't see him really well, is E. Warren Clark, the guy who found it sitting at the siding. NC and St. L did refurbish it in 1892. 1893, it appears at the World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago, kind of an early World's Fair. If you remember the World's Fair, like 1964, 65, it was similar to that. 1895 appears at the Cotton States International Exposition in Atlanta. 1897, a similar exposition in Nashville. So really not just a tourist trend. NC and St. So it's still owned at this point by the NC and St. which will become significant when the court battle in the 1960s occurs. So here's after it was fixed up, and once again, E. Warren Clark, who must have had really good publicity agent, is there in front of him, as if he personally refurbished the locomotive, even though it was a major railroad which did it. Century turns, and the General goes on permanent display at Union Depot in Chattanooga. We're going to talk a little more about Union Depot in a moment. But here's an early postcard showing the General sitting up there at Union Depot in Chattanooga. And from 1901 to 1961, that's kind of home base. It's on display in Chattanooga. From time to time, it's loaned out for various events. So if you have, so let's say in your living room, you have a locomotive, and it sat in your living room for 60 years, passed down through the generations. And then somebody comes along and says, oh, that's my locomotive. Well, you're going to say, no, it's been in my living room for 60 years. My great-great-grandfather passed it down to my great-grandfather, and so this is essentially what happens between Chattanooga and the state of Georgia. 1906, Grand Army of the Republic. Encampment, 1927, the 100th anniversary of the war on Ohio. 1933, Century of Progress Exposition in Chicago. Now this is interesting. 1939, the Georgia legislature passes a resolution having the General go on permanent display in the assault battlefield. Chattanooga's response to that was and nothing further happened. But that was the first sign that the state of Georgia was officially interested in getting that train back. It was a major success at the World's Fair in 1939. This doesn't show the General, but it does show the railroad pavilion from the New York World's Fair in 1939. That's something that's cool image. On the streamlined movement. Railroad Fair in Chicago, 1957, the NC and St. L merges with the L&N. Now the ownership's getting even murkier because first it was owned by the WA, now then in Nashville, Chattanooga, St. Louis, and now the L&N. All assets and liabilities of Nashville, Chattanooga, and St. Louis are assumed by the L&N. So you can see where the conflict is going to be. Chattanooga says, possession is 9/10 of the law. The L&N says, oh, wait a second, when we merged with the National Chattanooga and St. Louis, see this here? All assets and liabilities were assumed by the L&N. 1959, Stone Mountain Memorial Association attempts to have the general permanent display. In this case, Chattanooga didn't get involved, the L&N declined. But again, it shows interest on the part of Georgia to have that availability. June 6, 1961, the L&N removes the general at night out of the depot in Chattanooga and takes it to the Louisville shops for reconditioning. That's when it's the state the general is in today is as a result of that reconditioning. So it's now oil or has brakes and all that stuff. February 7, 1962, operates under its own power for the first time since 1914. There's actually color video when they fired it up for the first time. It moves back and forth on a test track in Nashville or Louisville. It's kind of cool. There it is. After it's reconditioned, all spanking shiny up and new looking. And that's basically what it looks like today. 1962, the centennial of the general, so it's now 100 years after the raid. April 14th, 1962, which is a Saturday, that's why it wasn't April 12th. The general runs under its own steam from Tilford Yard and the Chattanooga, retracing the route of its famous raid 100 years before. 100th anniversary of the Andrews raid. Pictures from Kennesaw. Here's the general steaming into Kennesaw. Kennesaw Depot is here. Here's a color photo from Kennesaw of the general. And if you've been in Kennesaw in the last 40 or 50 years, you'll know there's not really a downtown section to speak of. And here it looks like there's all these buildings across the street. Well, what they did is they built this false fronts to make it look like it was actually more like a town there. So that's a nice picture. Trains magazine estimated that 100,000 people viewed the run. 10,000 people in Kennesaw, 12,000 in Ringgold. This doesn't sound like much except for the fact the population of Kennesaw in 1962 was about 3,500. So 10,000 people showed up in Kennesaw. Trip from Atlanta to Chattanooga took about 8 hours. It's about 110, 112 miles. The general is reported to have reached a speed of 50 miles per hour between Ringgold and Chattanooga. It's really straight and flat. So during the Civil War, the reason you've ever read the trains only went 10 miles an hour or 15 miles an hour, it's not because the 440 couldn't go fast, it's because the tracks were in such a bad shape that they couldn't go faster than 10 or 12 miles an hour.